So currently I've got the track rotary up, where we're going to look at the last 4 guitars now. That being the rotary guitar, which is like one of the core guitars, the solo guitar, the impact delay guitar on the chorus, and then just another solo guitar that we have right at the end of the track. Right, let's begin. So first off, we've got the rotary, which comes in like quick into the song. This is what it sounds like on its own. It's probably going to be very, very quiet. So again, just a very clean DI signal. So from there, I did an EQ. Actually, we'll probably do it in the order in which I probably put these things on. Like, I always put the EQ at the top, just a preference, because like the chain, it makes sense for EQ, amp, compressor, and then anything else that might come afterwards. But realistically, I know for a fact that the first thing I put on was probably this raw speaker, which is the 4th plug-in down. So I loaded up the raw speaker. Let's have a listen to that. I left it on the fast setting. I changed it from the 120 to the 21H, and I haven't done anything since then. The rotary is one of my favourite sounds, and I use it in a lot of things, but I think it is something that I've used in every single track of this EP. And in this track, it's entirely written around this one little guitar. It's like second to the melody. So next up from that, I've probably added the amp. So for this, I use the Acoustic Bright Duo again, same as the verse guitar. Very nice. And then next up from there, I use the Chimpy Guitar Pro Compressor preset. I use that mainly just to get some makeup gain and balance out the levels. And then from that, I did quite like the sound of the 304E. Let's go back to the beginning so we can listen again. One moment. Come on. So for comparison, very, very mild difference. And then finally, once I got all my sound together, it's just then I did my 7-band EQ. So for my 7-band, I did obviously a roll off at the bottom end. Didn't want any of that rumble. This is a very, very warm kind of sound, and I wanted to like strengthen that. So I obviously did my boost at 200 Hz to warm it up. I wanted some clarity on them notes, a lot of like the buzz almost, not like a bad buzz, but it's got like a little jangle when it hits. So I try to emphasise that with the boost at 2 kHz, and then just a tiny little shelve off at around 10k. Nothing too much. And then the reverb I used for the distorted guitars, the one on the left and the right, I've added. So it's got full coverage, hard pan left, hard pan right, as well as the short room. I just want it to be like really reverberant, really like everywhere, with it being such like a core thing in the mix. So yeah, this is what that sounds like now. Very nice. So next up now, we've got the solo guitar. So if I just cut across to that, one moment. So this originally was on the single note distorted guitar part, but I separated it purely because I wanted a different tone, and so I could adjust the levels. So you can see here where one has started, one has ended, and one has begun. So if I listen from here, this is what it sounds like, completely dry. Very, very flat DI, it's nothing really special, nothing that entertaining. So starting with the amp I used was the Suzy Rhythm. For no particular reason I used this. I wanted something that wasn't too distorted, but something that had a bit of bite to it, rather than, so somewhere a bridge between the clean guitars and the distorted guitars, because we've just read from the chorus, we don't want another distorted guitar. So this is what I got from that. So yeah, it's like almost like fuzzy, a bit brown, but I kind of like that. Combine them with that, I've got my my saturator again with a lot less drive than last time, but it's just such a nice like tone builder. I think it's cleaned up that amp sound as well a little bit. Next up from there, I used, this is from the same company that the saturator comes from. This is a tube compressor. I mainly did this just for a bit of makeup gain and for the sound, rather than really compressing it. As you can see, like the compression's not that high and the makeup gain's quite high. So adding that in, this is what that sounds like now. So then from there, I added the EQ. So the EQ, I've rolled off anything past 100 Hertz, the usual. I've did a bit more of a high mid boost rather than low mid boost because I didn't want warmth. I wanted like character, with it being like a solo part with higher notes. So the EQ lower wouldn't really make sense. So we've added a bit of clarity with the 4 kilohertz, about 1 kilohertz. So I did that high mid boost, and then obviously shelving off at the top end, just the usual stuff. Now, I was happy with this tone after I added the short room and the left reverb, because it is slightly on the right. So this is what it sounds like. And I thought, yeah, this is cool, but like, how could I make it more interesting? Like, what was something I could do? And I thought, oh, I'll add a tremolo or like a vibrato, vibrato, sorry. But I couldn't find one like through the plugins. So if I load up, well, these are the sends, but if I go on the inserts, plugins, modulation, like there's no like distinct vibrato or anything like that. Like there's these ones, the chorus / vibrato, but there's not like any settings that you can adjust. And I went through them all and I played with a bunch of different things and I didn't really like them much until I got to the Muga Fuga ring modulator, and I took one of the presets and adjusted it in such a way that allowed me to create like a tremolo, but as well as that, it's got its own unique sound. By just adjusting these, adjusting the frequency and the rate of the LFO and the modulator mix. And the drive's quite a nice sound to it too. So if we have a listen now, this is what I got and what I made. So like, it's not quite a tremolo, but it's not just a vibrato as well. It just adds like something new and interesting to mix, like that isn't in the other tracks. At the end of the day, like these are 4 different tracks and they're using a lot of things that sound the same. So like adding little things like this and other examples for the other songs to like make them more distinct is exactly what the tracks need to be more distinct and to stand out, as well as being accompanying. So that's why I did that. Next up now is a guitar solo that I dubbed twice. One's in the middle, one's on the far right, and is a lot quieter. This comes right at the end of the track when the track goes to free tempo. I couldn't find like a tone that I liked when I played it on the fuzz guitar part, so I just made new tracks for it and had to play around with it. I'm trying to think how I started this. So ultimately I probably started with the amp. So this is what it sounds like just DI'd first off. Oh, I don't think I'm up to that point in the track. One moment. There we are. It's obviously very, very quiet. So I'll introduce the Duo Lux Crunch, which is obviously the more crunchy version of the one I've used for the verse guitars. And then on the second, actually we'll do them one at a time. So for the first one that's in the center, the main one, I've used the Duo Lux Crunch because I wanted that like sustain, but I didn't want too much distortion. Followed by, again, that beautiful saturator. It's absolutely littered in this track because it just sounds great. Similar drive level to the other solo guitar. So let's listen now. I think it just sounds great. Adds so much more to the mix. Next up now we have the electric guitar Pro compressor. I've adjusted the threshold a little bit because obviously it being a quieter take, and then use the makeup gain on that, as well as introducing some more dry mix. I didn't want to I wanted to like have the sound of the original still in there a little bit, not just all the compression sound, which is something different in comparison to any of the other tracks I've done on this song. Because it keeps that like picking. That's quite nice. Bit of like percussion to it. Next up from there is the EQ. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and I wanted to make something interesting that wasn't just a distinctly guitar. So, being extreme, I used the low pass all the way down to 1 kilohertz, and then proceeded to make a boost at 550 because I want it to be dull and dark, but not so dark that you can't hear the high notes. So inputting this 550 hertz boost about 6 dB, it like still keeps the precision of the notes in. So this is what that sounds like now. Very dull, obviously. And then finally, there's something again different that I haven't done before. I used the real tape flanger on the flutter setting, and then pushed the mix up all the way, and adjusted some of the settings, pulled the drive back, and I think I left the rate where it was. Yeah, I left the rate down, and it creates this like cool like flutter sound. And I add that in with the reverbs, which I did a lot, by the way, to give it really like atmospheric, large room sounds. But rather than creating a new reverb, I just used all the other ones combined to really like fill the panel of like the reverberant space. So the second one plays the same thing, but more of a support to the first one. So this one has the tweed bass clean on it, which is obviously a very clean preset. This is what this sounds like. Decent bit of a sustain. Once again, the saturator, don't need to go through that. With the drive up slightly a bit more. I've then used the flutter flange rather than the other setting, which was just the wobble. It sounds slightly different. Let's have a listen to that. It's like a slower rate, followed by another Pro compressor with the electric guitar setting on, and the same reverbs too. It creates this like cool George Harrison sounding kind of like a mix of guitars. The guitar on the right has a cool like delay, or like it's like pushing or pulling in comparison to the other guitars, and just has a nice overall sound to it. So yeah, this is what the two guitars sound like together. So yeah, that's all the guitars for Rotary.